Hello and welcome to today's NCFE Provider webinar. This is a short 30-minute CPD webinar where we'll be looking at effective questioning techniques. So thank you for joining us today, and I hope you'll find this session interesting and enjoyable. So this session is looking at a variety of questioning techniques, and hopefully it will give you something to think about, refresh your knowledge, and something you can use within your teaching. I'm Patricia Devlin and I'm part of the provider development team at NCFE, having previously taught for 20 years and been a subject development leader. So the objective of this session is to explore questioning techniques and how they can be used to support learner progression. So whether you use this webinar as a CPD refresher or you take the ideas and put them into practice, hopefully you'll find it useful. So firstly, an overview of what we'll be looking at. So we'll be looking at why do we use questioning, different types of questioning, and then we'll be looking at some definitions of these and examples, and then a summary at the end. So let's have a bit of a thinking warm-up starter activity. So these answers are statistics linked to questioning in the classroom. You may have seen this before, but can you remember or do you know what these questions are? I'll give you a few moments to have a think. So the first one, 135, is the average number of questions in a 1-hour lesson. 84% of lessons start with a question. 62% of questions are closed. And 15% of pupils never answer a question. So why do we question? So research shows that teachers who are classed as effective frequently plan and use a variety of questioning techniques. So this is a quote from Paul and Elder, 2001. What do you think the words are that are hidden and blocked out? It's the same word for both. So the something of questions we ask will therefore determine the something of the sort. And the word is quality. So the quality of questions we ask will therefore. So what does good questioning look like? So for this activity, I'd like you to reflect and think about what makes a good question. What does a good question look like? You may wish to pause the recording to allow some time to complete this. So now let's have a look at some of the characteristics of what a good question looks like. So a good question promotes retention, it's thought-provoking, good questioning is properly directed, related to the learning objectives, planned, unambiguous, student-friendly vocabulary and natural language. It has a purpose to motivate and inform. Good questioning varies in techniques. Time is given to answer the question. Succinct and concise, and challenging yet attainable. So what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to think of one word that most of your questions start with. So do we ask the same sort of questions of our learners in all their lessons? Is there variety? So I'd like you to have a think about of what the one word that most of your questions start with. So was your word in this list? So we're now going to look at different types of questioning styles and techniques. So with this, we're going to have a bit of a quiz, guess the question type, to refamiliarize and refresh ourselves with questioning types and examples. So you may wish to pause the recording at times to give yourself time to answer. So we'll go through each with an explanation, an example, and then you decide on the type of questioning you think it is from the list provided. So the first one, the explanation is requires brief and short answers, usually only a word or few words, and it's used to test memory retention, and it's summative. So would this be open, closed, negative phrasing, display, or probing? And an example of this type of question, how many days in December? And the correct answer for this is closed questions. The next one. So what is the question type? The explanation allows a learner to think critically and requires longer answers. It's an explorative question. So some of the choices you have: open, negative phrasing, display, leading, and probing. An example of this question: describe typical December weather. And the answer to this is open questions. So open questions cannot be answered with a yes or no response. They require elaboration on their point. Next, the questioner asks a question that leads the learner to put forward only one specific side of possible outcomes. It tests knowledge in a specific area. So is this open, negative phrasing, display, leading, or probing? I'll have an example. So what do you think of the horrible effects of pollution, or what do you think are the effects of winter weather on dogs? There's some examples. So this one is a leading question, and leading questions prompt and encourage for a specific answer. For this one, a balanced question designed to make the learner look at both sides of a situation, usually higher ability questions showing a solid in-depth knowledge. So what do we think this one is? Is it neutral, display, leading, probing, referential, or scaffolding? We'll have a look at an example. So describe the arguments for and against having an extra day off over the festive period. And yes, the correct answer is neutral question. So the purpose of neutral questions is to look at a balanced approach. The next one. A probing question is usually a follow-up question to test knowledge in depth. So you've got some choices there, but there's a big clue in the explanation. And also, if you have a look at the examples, you've got if so, why, or how did you come to this conclusion? So yes, this one is a probing question. And these are usually open-ended questions to reveal more information, and they are good to check the depth of knowledge. This one, a question asks for dramatic effect or to enhance a point. So you've got display, rhetorical, leading, probing, referential, scaffolding, or debating. And the example, do you care about our planet? And the correct answer for that one is rhetorical question. Rhetorical questions are used for dramatic effect or to enhance a point. So this one, the questioner attempts to phrase the question in such a way that influences the outcome negatively. So we've got some choices there: negative phrasing, display, probing, positive phrasing, referential, or reverse. The example: describe how difficult it is to find what you are after when online shopping. And again, there's a clue in the explanation, and this one is negative phrasing. So the question is attempting to phrase the question in a way that influences that outcome negatively. This one, the questioner attempts to phrase the question in such a way that influences the outcome positively. So you've got your choices. The example: describe how local businesses can support the community. And again, this one, the clue is also in the explanation. This one's positive phrasing. For the next question, this is a question where the answer is already known to the questioner, but it's to test the knowledge retention of a learner. So you've got negative phrasing, display, probing, positive phrasing, referential, or reverse for this. And the example: when do you break up for the holidays? And this one is a display questions. So for a display question, the teacher already knows what they're going to say, and it's used to check learning and understanding. So this one is a question where the answer is unknown to the questionee or the teacher, but it's known to the learner. This promotes deep thought, so the teacher does not know what the response will be. So you've got some choices there. And the example: what stood out the most when you looked at that picture? And this answer for this one is referential questions. So these are often used for personal views and experiences of a learner. And also to find that greater understanding of a topic. The next question: this gives the learner a significant amount of information in order to answer the question. So you've got neutral, display, rhetorical, debating, probing, referential, or scaffolding. The example: instead of saying how did Henry VII raise money, you could ask, Henry VII was known to be excellent with money. He had a large number of subjects in his kingdom. How do you think he raised money? And this one is known as a scaffolding question. It's guiding the learner to discover the answer in a step-by-step approach. This next one is the idea that these types of questions is to have the learner discuss the possible outcomes. So you've got your choices and the example. So in pairs, each take one side of the argument and discuss whether technology had an impact on the level of laziness in society. And this one's a debating question. So the idea that these types of questions is to have the learner discuss the possible outcomes. The next one, this is where you give the learner the answer and they must think of the possible question. So you've got your choices on the screen. The example, the answer would be paragraph. So the question that you'd be looking for is, what is the term used to break up text in writing? So this is where you give the learner the answer, they have to find the possible question, This one's known as reverse questioning. So this is a quote from William G. Camp. What words are hidden? So I'll give you a few moments to have a look and read this. Effective use of questioning is a critical something in every good teacher's toolbox. But just as a good mechanic selects the right tools for the job and uses it correctly, a good teacher uses questions at the right level and follows good questioning something. So let's reveal those words now. So effective use of questioning is a critical asset in every good teacher's toolbox, but just as a good mechanic selects the right tools for the job and uses it correctly, a good teacher uses questionings at the right level and follows good questioning techniques. So that brings us to the end of this short reflection on questioning techniques. So things to think about, plan questions into your lessons, think about your learners. Often learners may be shy at first, so maybe start with closed questions and then build up. Use a variety of questioning styles. Reflect and think about your learners and the types of questions you ask. And think about questioning as a differentiation tool and how you can build that within to your sessions. So thank you for attending or watching this session, and I hope you found it useful. There is a QR code for feedback, and if you could complete it, that would be fantastic. So thank you for your time.